Thank you everyone for those of you who are filtering in up till now. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us your time. My name is Joy Samuel. I am the mentor coordinator at Youth Revive. Those of you guys who have been with Youth Revive for a while and have been following the Ignite Me program and the other things that we do with DISD, the mentor program has yet to launch, but we plan on launching in the fall semester of 2020. And Adrienne McConnell has brought me on staff in December of 2019 to head that up. And we've been working on it ever since. Since the COVID outbreak, that has looked a little bit different for us, and it's looked like this. So this is our efforts to keep moving, to keep it rolling, to not lose momentum, and make sure that everybody stays connected. So our speaker that we'll be hearing from today is Leoni Michael, and I'll give her a chance to introduce herself to you all now.
Good afternoon. My name is Leoni Michael, and I am the Director of Career Development at Dallas Baptist University. I first started at DBU about a year and a half ago, and I started in the EDD K-12 program with Dr. Duggar. He is the director, and at the time, he was the dean of the College of Education, and I worked closely with him with our doctoral students in the school districts, and then I moved into this role about 2.5 months ago or so, and very honored that the president of DBU asked me to step into this role. What qualifies me for this is, in the Center for Career Development, not only is it helping and walking with these students through the next 4 years of their careers, but it's mentoring them, it's loving them, it's pouring into them and guiding them along the way. And I think they really need that. This generation and every generation really needs that. They need people who have already walked it and who have already experienced some of life to come alongside them and to guide them through the process so they don't feel alone. And then within our department, we also have a director of mentoring, we have service learning, and that's just creating a holistic individual when we talk about our servant leaders that DBU is producing. So that is what I do at DBU. And then in my previous life, prior to DBU, I have probably done quite a few things, more than most people, because I don't believe in being unhappy in my careers or anywhere I work. I believe in being joyful in everything. And so, and once I kind of master something and I get bored, I move on. And I think that can be detrimental sometimes, but I also think it is a beautiful thing because change is good. So I was a nurse before. I have a cosmetology license. I have a real estate license. I've owned my own real estate business for 13 years. I worked in pharmaceutical sales, medical home health care sales, and I've also worked for American Airlines as an instructor in customer service and the ramp agents. So there's probably plenty more that I've done. And as conversations go on, I usually think about it and go, oh, I did that too. So that's probably what I think qualifies me to walk with people through this life.
Certainly, certainly. When I met Leoni as a student at Dallas Baptist University, so first of all, it is pretty incredible to be working alongside her now and have the opportunity to be more from her in this setting. But as a student, I could see firsthand how she guided students along, and being kind of a jack of all trades came as, I would say, a huge tool and a huge leg up when it comes to walking these students through their career paths, because you've kind of seen lots of angles of lots of things, and regardless of what a student wants to do, you've kind of dipped your toe into it and are able to give them practical advice that's not abstract, and that is firsthand guidance in the real world. So I think that is why Leoni jumped to mind for me when it comes to looking for a speaker for this seminar, just because I do find her very, very qualified, and I'm very excited to have you with me today. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Joy. It is absolutely my pleasure. I believe in mentoring with everything I have and then some.
Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with these folks. so you guys can see our itinerary today. So we're going to go ahead and jump into a moderated Q&A, and I will be asking Leoni some questions for about 25 minutes. And after our moderated Q&A, we're going to open the floor in case you guys have anything to ask. We are able to see, I'll put it in Q&A mode so we can get it going that way. But let's go ahead and jump into this moderated Q&A. So Leoni, I want to know if you have had a mentor in your youth or in the early stages of your career. And if so, I want to know how you have seen a notable difference in having a mentor versus if you were to not and just go on the early stages of your career unguided by someone more experienced than you.
Okay, great. Good question. So as I was growing up, I grew up in Cape Town, South Africa. I was 14 years old when my parents decided to flee the country ultimately, and then we came to the United States, and at 14 with a suitcase and nothing else. And so my first mentor in life, at the time I didn't know they were considered mentors, but my first mentor was my dad. Though I love my mother, my father is the epitome of a Christ-like, Christ-centered example of how to do life. He, to me, was such, and still is, such a great mentor in being selfless, loving others more than himself, pushing others to be great, and truly working hard. My dad is rebuilt in South Africa. He created a business, a trucking business, with God's help, and he'll always give God the credit, by the way. So I really admire him for that. And then he left everything for the freedom of his children and for his children to have an education and to have something better than he did. And so he and my mom gave up everything. And like I said, I love my mother. She was part of the sacrifice. She made the sacrifice too, but my dad is more the leader in the kind of person I wanted to be and still want to be. And then he started from scratch as a janitor here in the United States. And then he worked construction during the day, janitor at night, and saved enough money to start another trucking business. And he is still a trucker at 72 years old and will forever work, I think. And so I look at him, and he is the greatest mentor probably that I've had. Once we landed in the US, we met a family, and they were a South African family as well. And that woman, Mona Titus, she became my lifelong mentor. She, again, like we did, started from nothing when they moved here 10 years prior to when we came. And she was a nurse, went to school, became a nurse, was very successful, but very spiritual as well, and just life smart. And she was a lot older. She was older than my parents at the time. And she took me under her wing, and she just showed me how to be an American, how to be a colored, because that's what we were considered in South Africa, mixed American from Cape Town, South Africa. And I admire her to this day, and she is still my mentor. And I still do life with her, even though she lives in Columbus, Ohio, and we live here in Texas. She has truly mentored me, even in long distance. We call each other, we talk, we text each other. She follows me on Facebook, and she encourages me, and she's a fabulous, fabulous mentor. The other person I would say would be, as life goes on, right? Your mentors change, and God brings people into your life for a reason. I know that now. And so he brings these people into your life because he knows that's what you need. And so I just felt like as I was growing up and as I continued to grow, God will continue to bring me new people into my life who can become mentors. And a mentor is somebody you invite into your life. What we need to remember as mentors and mentees, a mentee is the one who needs to drive this bus. You are in control of your life. So invite somebody to be your mentor. Ask them. People want to do that for them, right? So mentors are amazing to do life with because they're not monetarily successful necessarily, but they're successful in life. They are rich in life. They are selfless typically. That's kind of what I was attracted to, is the selflessness of my mentors and the love they give others and the sacrifices they make for others, regardless of what it means for them. And then just pouring into somebody else. And so Mona Titus was a huge influence in my life. Now, I would say as an adult, I also had a spiritual mentor, and her name is Danita Sylvester. And again, she just helped me grow spiritually. She helped me grow in my faith. And she is, I'd say, about 10 years older than me. And we continue to do life together that way. And career-wise and educationally, I would say my last boss, Dr. Neil Duggar, he has been an amazing influence in my life over the last year and a half. And I've invited and asked him to mentor me as I continue my journey at DBU and continue my journey in education and in life. And that is, I believe, such a great contribution to my success so far. Other than my faith, it is truly the people who have come alongside me, but whom I've invited to do life with.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's really good to hear about your experiences, not only as a child, teenager, young adult being mentored, but the fact that it's continuing to this day. I think that that's so important for people to hear, that, it's an ongoing thing. It is awesome. So you've told us a little bit about your current career at DBU and what you do with the young people there. So that is, I would definitely say mentoring, to each of those students. At Youth Revive, when we launched this mentoring program, what we're going for and what we seek to do is create kind of a long-term one-on-one mentoring relationship. Do you have anything currently that looks like that now with a mentee, rather than, because students are coming in and out of your office all the time, seeking advice, seeking counsel, guidance. But do you have anything a little bit more intimate and personal in your life with a mentee, that you just share a specific relationship with one person?
So, yeah, I actually mentor several students, people, individuals, and it's been ongoing. I really started this process and this desire of actually giving back so long ago, but it was always in a conversation here or there, one or two conversations, and I just felt like, wow, God was really using me to change lives, to touch lives, and to save lives. And that's kind of a whole nother story of how God will use you sometimes, where you will save somebody's life and you just don't know it. So I've had that experience before. But long term, I would say, when my kids were little, I volunteered at their school. I was PTA president, I was homeroom mom, I did it all because I loved being there. And then, and let's not lie, we all wanted to spy on our kids and make sure they were behaving. So that was a big reason. But then what I've learned over the years was, they are watching, kids are watching, they soak it up, they are sponges. And so I had to really be careful. You have to be careful what you say and what you do, because they do soak it up and they do watch you, especially when they think you're just the greatest thing right now. And that will change over time. But if they are looking to you for how to do life, then you really need to be careful what you do, what you say, and how you behave in front of our students, in front of our children, as well as not just in front of them, but behind closed doors and on social media. So I would say when my kids got to high school, I still followed them on PTA. I was PTA president of their high school. And so the students and the teachers, the principal knew me very well. And I really felt the Lord calling me to mentoring intentionally. So in high school, when my kids were in high school, at least my oldest, I took on about 2 or 3 students, probably 3, and I walked through junior and senior year with them. Okay. And that was a privilege. And I still am connected to them. We stay in contact, and it's just not as frequent as it was when they were in town. I also have taken on a couple of students in my son's class, and they approached me and said, I love talking to you. You give a lot of great advice. Will you walk with me through this difficult time? And what started out as walking with them through a difficult time really led to walking with them through life so far. And it's been a privilege to see them grow. They still struggle with some things, but who doesn't, right? But to walk them through those struggles and to guide them and to give them solid advice, at least as far as I know, through my experiences, has been a joy. And then fast forward, I start doing life with women that I know through networking circles, because keep in mind, I was a business owner, and so I did a lot of networking meetings, and I joined a lot of women groups. And over time, God's also brought some women into my life who I now mentor and do life with. So it is an ongoing everyday thing for me. I don't know of a time when I'm not mentoring or when I'm not pouring into somebody else or helping them through a season in their life. And then at DBU, I technically have about 7 young women that I mentor through our mentoring program. And 5 of them I've been assigned, and they were seeking it. And then 2 others who just approached me and asked me if I would mentor them, if I would walk through this next.
Oh, lost you there for a second. Looks like you might have frozen.
Oh, really? Okay. Are we still on?
Yes, I got you back now. I lost you there for a second. Sorry there, but it looks like we're back on track.
Okay.
Yeah, so you had 2 additional young women who sought your guidance outside of the program, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it's okay. I am, my family jokes with me and says I would just don't rest. I do. The Lord gives me times of rest. I get plenty of rest. I just believe that when somebody is crying out or they're reaching out to you, it is my responsibility to be available, or to at least connect them with somebody who could help them.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for giving us the details on that. We want to give the folks listening some very practical and hands-on tools when it comes to mentoring, especially right now, because it's a little abstract as to what that looks like. So let's talk theory, and let's give these folks listening at home something, kind of to work from with their mentees or potential mentees. So
Okay.
in your experience so far during this time of self-isolation and social distance, have you noticed any significant drawbacks with mentoring? Any of your numerous relationships with your mentees, have they been harmed, or have there been any drawbacks to them in any way now that you have to part from them physically?
Yeah, so some of the drawbacks, I think, to mentoring, there are several. But I think the biggest one is human beings, whether you love a hug or not, human beings, we were created to do life with others.
Right.
And when we remove that element of touch and connection and socializing with each other, it really does put a tailspin on some people more than others, right? And so it really just depends. This is where it matters how well you know your mentee. I think if you know your mentee is more susceptible to spiraling because they are disconnected from you physically. And now all of a sudden social distancing and quarantine has happened and they can't come see you or they can't connect with you. You have to be creative in how you do that. And so I find that um, that is probably the biggest obstacle right now with mentoring. But I saw a question that said, "How often do you connect with your mentor? With my mentor?" I'll answer that in a little bit. But when I connect with my mentees, I still do it over the phone. We FaceTime, we Zoom. I make an effort to still connect with them, whether it's just a text and, "Hey, I'm here. I'm ready to talk to you. Let's set up a time." So I really do make a connection. I'm intentional about how I connect with them. And some of them want to FaceTime. Most of them do. I think I FaceTime with all of them. I've done a group FaceTime because sometimes at DBU, when we do our mentoring session, we do one with everybody if they're comfortable with that. And then I do one-on-ones. So I see my mentees twice a month, once in a group setting and once one-on-one. Obviously, it's a little different now. So I try to do at least a group setting if I can, whoever can join. And I do it through Zoom or FaceTime. Or we do one-on-ones and it works just as well.
Okay.
But yeah, but it's not the same. It's just not the same. But we have to do what we have to do, right? I even told one of my mentees the other day, if she really needs a hug, I am not afraid of what's to come. Like, right? I just believe God will protect me, and I've been quarantining forever, and so has she. And I'm willing to drive and get a Sonic drink and sit in our cars or sit at a park, sit 6 feet apart if she wants. But if she needs a hug, I'm going in for the hug. Like I just am not afraid of that.
Very admirable. So you mentioned that you don't feel it's the same, which it undeniably is not. Speaking to you like this is not the same as when I cross paths with you at DBU.
Yeah.
But in what ways specifically? So this isn't on our itinerary, kind of going off the dome here. But in what ways have you noticed a disconnect versus talking to your mentee like this, just on FaceTime, versus seeing them in person? Does the conversation change? Is there a shift in the conversation, the content of it, the depth of it?
Um, I don't think it's necessarily a shift in the depth of the conversation. It's just you're still talking to a screen, and there's a psychological block sometimes, I think, when you're talking to a screen. Even talking to the computer right now, I'm looking at my camera, looking at your face, looking at the camera, looking at your face, and there's still that disconnect because we need human touch. We were created for that. And though I'm not touching you when you're sitting in front of me, I have the option to reach out and touch you if you're crying. I have the option to give you a hug if I needed to. I have the option. And when you're talking like this, there is some lag, right, in what we're saying. And so it's just having a flow in a conversation without feeling like you're interrupting each other. And then it's more like, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hey, right? So with the interruption of technology, the interruption of the lag in the screen, all of that, I think it just breaks up the conversation and the feeling and the thought process.
Okay, I got you. I like that you mentioned that, even if your mentee is sitting in front of you in person, even though your reasoning is that humans need touch, it's not like you're, just touching them anyway. Right. It's just that you have that option. It's like an element of comfort, an element of reassurance that if need be,
right,
that option is there for that kind of comfort, that kind of parental affection in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I like that. I think that's a good thing to touch on.
I need to look at these questions, right?
So regarding, let's move away from the negative stuff and all the drawbacks. Have you noticed any benefits of mentoring from a distance? Is there anything that mentoring like this virtually with your folks has given you that seeing them in person has not?
The only thing that I can think of, because I'm a people person, so no, I do not like mentoring virtually.
Yeah.
But I will say there is, you know, I'm a glasses full kind of girl. So I have to I have to dig deep and figure out how am I going to turn this around and feel better about it. Um, I know, detrimental to myself, which I, again, don't believe any kind of help is detrimental. I think I just love doing it. I actually applied to a women's national, actually global mentoring group
Okay.
to mentor globally, because now that I know I can do it and it's not so bad,
Mhm.
why not open it up, right? And so it's mid-career women who are looking for mentors. And so I'm in the application process and the interviewing process with joining that group,
Oh,
and actually doing this globally and yeah, virtually.
so you think that mentoring virtually kind of gives you longer arms in a way? You have a wider reach,
I
wider
think,
insight.
yeah, yeah, I think so, right? I think there's so much we can learn from quarantine, um, and if you look at the positives, if you focus on the positive things, you're going to learn something. And what I learned is that I can mentor globally. So yay for us.
Right. Just to give you guys at home a little bit of insight, as we mentioned earlier during our introductions, Leoni is the head of career development at Dallas Baptist University, and she recently headed up a virtual career fair, which was a completely foreign concept to me. I had no idea how it was going to be pulled off, but pull it off she did. And one of the benefits, we were discussing it afterwards, and one of the benefits that she told me she noticed is that she was able to expose these young people to so many more career opportunities because it could go global, it could go national. When you host an in-person career fair, right, you're kind of limited to who can come. And right now everyone can come. And she
Mm-hmm.
had no problem inviting um, national and international um, career opportunities to expose these young people to and to introduce them to. And even during this time of isolation, their opportunities were expanded because of that. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
in some ways that theory can apply to mentoring because, like you said, your reach is, you realize that it can be global now and you're not limited to just your physical confines.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we need to, I love the idea of inclusion and diversity, and I celebrate that. And so why not? Why not open it up to anybody? And that's just it. We have to be willing to mentor people who are different, who think differently, because not only am I learning, are they learning from me, I am learning from them. And so I do believe in inclusion, diversity, and diversifying your mentees as well.
That is a very, I really appreciate that you mentioned that because I think I can speak for myself personally heading up Youth Revive's upcoming mentoring program is I've put a whole lot of focus on this concept of matching, right? Of matching the mentor to the mentee and trying to find that perfect match, whether it be making sure that their careers align, making sure that their
Mhm.
personalities align. But the fact that you mentioned that really gets me thinking that it could definitely benefit both parties if there's a little bit of disconnect there, if there's a little
Mhm.
bit of if it's not entirely compatible. And in the same way that you mentioned that the mentor can learn from the mentee and vice versa, if there are some differences there, then that's a good thing. And both parties will grow from that. I really like that you mentioned that. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. There's absolutely an unlimited power of mentorship. You have to think about this. Back in the day, 75% of executives credit their success to a mentor, but they were white men being mentored by white men, right? That was just the way of the world way back then. And now it feels like, you know, I everybody has come to the idea of now embracing this idea of mentoring, but we're still gravitating towards mentoring just females or just males or somebody who is like-minded or who looks like you, who comes from the same area. Whereas, can you imagine what kind of global impact we would have if we mentored all people,
Mhm.
anybody who needs a mentor, and loved on all people and showed them that kind of love, right? The selfless, I want you to succeed as much as I've succeeded. Why not? Give everybody the opportunity to succeed.
I definitely agree, and I could see the potential of, um, if I were to be mentored by someone who looked significantly different from me and has lived a significantly different life from me, I think going forward in the future, I would be able to treat people like that person a little bit better, right? So people who fall into maybe their social bracket, their economic bracket, things like that, I would better know how to love those people since I was mentored by one, versus if I was
Mm-hmm.
mentored by someone who thinks like me, looks like me, acts like me, talks like me, has experienced the same things as I have. I'm gonna know how to treat people like me very well, but I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna have a whole lot of experience when it comes to interacting with people who aren't like me.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. You break down the walls of stereotype.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So last two, coming down to it before we open the floor for Q&A.
Yeah, I have some questions in here and I can't read. I'm sorry, I can't read them and talk at the same time.
That's okay. When we get to the open
Okay.
questions, I'll read those out to you. What advice do you have for someone who had a mentee prior to this COVID outbreak and are now separated from them? So, like much like you, things were going, they were moving along smooth, making a lot of progress, making some headway, and then this thing comes and cuts the head right off of it. Do you have any advice for people in that situation?
Yeah, I would say that if you forgot that you have a mentee, which I kind of did the first couple of weeks, because we all went into survival mode of trying to adjust to working from home. We have families at home. Some of us have families, and some of us just have some chaos because now things are so different. But if you forgot that you have a mentee or you haven't really been as intentional about reaching out, I would highly encourage you to call them, or today, not just a text. Texting and emails, it's so impersonal. You know them, you love them, talk to them. So call them, reach out, maybe text initially and say, hey, it's been a couple of weeks. I would love to talk to you. Let's schedule a time. And
Mhm.
at least schedule a time to connect with them immediately. And then keep it simple. If it is, going out and meeting at a park and sitting 6 feet apart, then do that. There's nothing wrong with that unless you're compromised, of course, then don't do it. And if you don't feel comfortable, don't do it. But wear a mask if you want to. But show them that you care and that you're thinking about them, and then start having normal conversations with them and help them through this difficult time. Tell them your struggles. Be vulnerable too. Like, tell them what you're going through, how you've adjusted to this, and be vulnerable, because again, people love vulnerability. They want to know that you've been there, done that, and experienced it, yet you've come out on the other side, and you know you have some advice, you have some thoughts on how to overcome difficult times.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, someone who does not currently have a mentee and did not go into this with one, but plans to mentor post COVID. Do you have any advice for them? Because this is their prep time right now. This is their running start.
Yeah, I would say if God's allowed you to make it through life thus far, and you've overcome some major obstacles in your life, then consider the fact that you have something to give back, which I think we all do, every single one of us. With our blessings, our suffering, our challenges that we've overcome, we have something to give back to somebody. And I think that is so important to just pull the Band-Aid off and go do it. Just go do it, because you just never know whose life you're going to touch, whose life you're going to change, and whose life you're going to save, by sharing your story with them and then walking through life with them. Just do it.
I like that. I like that. That's a very bold approach, and it's not. This is the perfect time to get mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically ready in every way that you need to be able to take on an intimate relationship like this with sometimes a stranger, often a stranger.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does become, you're right, it does become an intimate relationship, right? So you have to be ready to take on somebody else's emotional baggage. They're, maybe they're trying to figure out, what do I do next? I'm in this dead career. What's next, right? So you're taking on somebody's baggage for sure. You're taking on their struggles. But in the end, when they come out of it, the joy of seeing somebody succeed, that's enough for me. Like, just to watch them take baby steps and succeed and overcome some huge obstacle in their life, and be better for it in the end, greatest joy ever.
That's very comforting. That's very comforting to hear from someone. I mean, I currently am being mentored, and just to hear it from the other side and where you guys' heart is at is very comforting. So we've got about 15 minutes for open floor questions. We've already got some in here right now.
Okay.
If you guys have any, if y'all at home have any that you haven't asked, I would encourage you to toss them in there, because I think we can get to them all. Firstly, so this is the one that you mentioned. How often do you connect with your mentor, or with your mentee? Or, I mean, you could mention both, since you have people who are currently mentoring you. Yeah. How often do you connect?
Okay, so my lifelong mentor, Mona, she lives in Columbus. So when I am going through a life crisis, or not even a crisis necessarily, but if I'm struggling with a difficulty in making a decision about whether it's the kids, career, life, family, all of that, extended family, I typically will reach out to her, or she sees me on Facebook. So she will reach out to me sometimes. So I'd say she and I probably connect every 3 to 4 months.
Okay.
Even if there's nothing going on, I just check in with her. I think it's kind of, it's more of a friendship, a mother-daughter friendship, because I love her and I care for her, and she's older now and she has some illnesses. So I do check in with her more often. The other person, I think that my spiritual mentor, I check in with her probably once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, we usually spend some time, not always talking about scripture or anything like that. It's not all the time, but most of the time that's really what our conversation eventually comes back to that. So it's just growing in my faith and walking through life with a woman of faith who's had a career. I think that was a big piece in my life that was missing, was when I was in my 20s and I started having kids, I also wanted a career. And at the time, what I felt was that the Christian faith almost beat you up for wanting a career and being a believing woman, wife, mother. And I needed somebody in my life to tell me, who was a believer, who believed what I believed. I needed somebody in my life to tell me it was okay to have those desires in my heart, which was to have a career and to be successful in my careers. And that's what Danita did for me. She gave me freedom to want a career and to want to be a mom and to want to be a good wife all at once. And that was awesome. And then Dr. Duggar gives me a lot of educational and career advice. And so I see him, because he's at DBU, it's probably a little easier. But I try to go see him every other week or so, just to touch base with him and to check in with him. Because I have a lot of, I'm shifting gears and careers. And so I do see him more often now because of the need.
Got it. Okay, cool. I want to address something really quick for our attendees. I see a few of you guys putting questions in the chat, which is great. I can still see them, but we've still got to bounce back and forth between the two. It'll be a lot easier if you put them in the Q&A tab. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A tab. Go ahead and ask your questions there. But I do see a few in the chat, which I'm going to go ahead and address so I don't lose them. Miss Haynes Patton, I am so glad that you asked this. I love this right here. I am a mature woman. How do I find a mentor for myself? I am so, so glad that you asked this because I think that as marvelous as a concept as mentoring is, I think that culture has definitely shifted it to focus on young people more, I would say most,
Mm-hmm.
which makes sense because young people do require the most guidance, they're the most inexperienced, but everybody could use someone, absolutely everyone. So do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, I would think the first thing that comes to mind is think of somebody who you want to emulate. Somebody who, um, so for me, how I pick mine is I will find somebody who I'm listening to, or whether it's in my classes that I take, 'cause I'm working on a master's, and whether it's in my classes or if it's um, in just conversation at a networking group or conversations in general, no matter where I am, I'm always listening. I'm always listening for the person who I am most attracted to, which is spiritually sound, somebody who is selfless in conversation, so you can hear in their voice and in the words they use. Somebody who mentors speak in a different language. We speak in a language of how can I help you? What do you need? Um, what can I do to help you be better? Like, if you can find somebody who has that kind of conversation with you, you're on the right track. And then somebody who you think, like, you look at their life and you say, man, she did it right, or he did it right. Then approach them and say, how did you do this? You do A, B, and C, whatever you're attracted to, whatever you think is a great quality of theirs. Go to them, point it out, say, here are your qualities that I see are so admirable. How did you do it? Can you teach me?
Right. That's good.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, I think, Lori, it doesn't look too different from anybody else asking for a mentor. I think that it requires the same amount of humility and requires the same amount of um, willingness and openness to learn. Um, I think that whatever stage you're in life, it doesn't make that much of a difference. If anything, I think it may be a little easier to find a mentor if you're more mature, just because whoever you ask, they understand more what you're asking, and they know that you know what you're asking. I think
Mm-hmm.
when a young person asks for a mentor, they don't know what they're getting into. They're not expecting the accountability,
Right.
which links directly to Miss Kashanda's question, which is, do you feel the need to hold mentees accountable? Because you mentioned that mentees need to drive the relationship.
Absolutely. We have to hold them accountable um, because I'm giving up my time to spend guiding, advising, directing, listening, and then creating a plan for you, right? We go through it and we create a plan together. So if I'm putting in the time, you need to put in the time and the work afterwards. And then when you come back, I absolutely hold them accountable. When my mentees leave me, there's usually an assignment, because we're talking about, we talk, so when I mentor, depends on who it is too. So my young people, when I'm mentoring them, we have kind of a plan. So we first I start with prayer. That's just how I do it. So we start with a prayer because it depends on who I'm mentoring. And even the ones that I mentor who are not believers or who are struggling with that, I still pray with them because they asked me to be their mentor. And they know who I am, and that is part of who I am. So if they didn't like that, then they shouldn't have asked me.
Right.
That's just kind of my attitude about it. So I'm going to be me because they asked me to be their mentor because I'm me. So we're just going to keep in that frame. So I pray with them first, and then we talk about, what have you done? Like, what's going on? What did you do this last couple of weeks or since the last time I saw you? How, we talk about, I open it up and they get to talk. So they tell me about all of what's going on, and I'm taking notes, because sometimes they'll drop little nuggets in there of, oh, I was struggling with this, but I think I kind of got over it, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll move on, right?
Mhm.
Well, I'm taking notes. I know that there's something coming.
Right.
After we do that, then we talk about, so did you accomplish what we talked about last time? I gave you homework. I told you to do X, Y, and Z. Did you get to it? Well, I did one, but I didn't do the other one, and I don't know how to, and I got stuck. And then it becomes now, again, it's my style. I'm not going to give you too much leeway on being lazy. And I'm not going to, if I'm spending the time with you away from my family, away from my job, then you're going to have to be accountable for the things that we set in motion in place for you to be successful. But if you're going to be lazy, then we're going to talk about that. And we're going to get really straight and ugly about it, because I'm not going to put up with that. Mm-hmm. Because if you want to be where you want to go, then you have to do the work to get there. I'm not going to do it for you. Mm-hmm. And I'm certainly not going to sit and spend my time idling with you and you're not doing anything.
Yeah. So. I think that you probably didn't realize it, but your answer really well encapsulated a question that Adrian Templeton had, which was, how are your mentoring sessions set up? Meaning, do you have certain topics that you focus on, or solely based on where they are and what their specific needs are? So it sounds a little bit more like your mentoring sessions are more so based on their needs, right? And where they're at.
Yes, it is. And then but I will always come back to, because again, these are college students. So we always go back to, if we didn't talk about, some of them can be in a place just, my family's falling apart, or, it depends on where they are. So I definitely address that need first, right? So I take the Maslow's hierarchy of, needs and safety, right? So I follow that. And again, the reason why I probably do that is because I have a degree in psychology. And so I do focus on the needs first, of safety and emotional needs, and then, taking care of all of that. And then we circle back to, even if I have so my sessions are usually about 45 minutes long. Mm-hmm. And so I take the last 10 to 15 minutes and we talk about, okay, where are you with classes? Are you still focused on this major? Have you looked into some jobs then we talk about career and, internships, and because I always want them to be thinking, I'm dropping little nuggets so that they can be thinking about what's next. We can talk about your feelings now, but we need to talk about what's next. We got to move out of that.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good mindset. I think that if it's not, you have to have a destination,
Yeah.
Holding hands while you walk is great, but if you don't know where you're walking to, it is a waste of time for everybody. So
yeah. I'm a huge goal setter. I even when I do my sessions, my one-on-one sessions with our students, I do bubble mapping with them. I get on my dry erase board and we think big and we dream big. And that's what I tell them when they walk in. You came in here today because you're going to dream big. You're going to dream bigger than you ever thought you could dream. And then we're going to work backwards and figure out how we're going to get there.
Okay, got it. Another question that Adrian Templeton had, which I really, really like this one. How do you distinguish between mentoring, life coaching, and counseling? Because the line is very fine and very blurred between all three. What's your take on that?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. I'm not a licensed psychologist or a licensed
life coach.
Life coach. Well, I'm certified.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I'm not a licensed psychologist. I did not get a degree and sit through all the licensing hours, and I do not hold a Texas license in psychology. So that right there drops me out of that bucket. So there's no liability for me, at least in that sense. At least I don't think. When it comes to, what was the other, just mentoring?
So mentoring, life coaching, and counseling.
Okay, so the mentoring and the life coaching part, I feel like depending on who I'm talking to, those two kind of coincide with each other. They go work in tandem with each other, because I still haven't mastered differentiating that or breaking that apart, because I don't know where the line is when it comes to that personally. again, I believe that in a mentoring relationship, the mentor and the mentee can walk away at any time without being sued, or there's no license there. I'm not held to a certain standard when it comes to, licensing. So you have to be able to read the person you're mentoring.
Right.
Because they will give you a vibe when it's just not working anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you can really work through that. And then sometimes I believe in being very honest at the right time.
Okay.
Because then you have to give them an out and you make it about you. This is not working for us because I feel like I'm not giving you what you need. Make it about, it's my fault in a way, because we're the grown-ups, let's just face it, we're adults. It's my fault. I feel like I'm not really meeting your needs at this time.
Okay.
This is, and talk very honestly through that. Now, if they're a younger person, they're gonna kind of be nervous about having this conversation, right? But again, you're teaching them how to handle differences. You're teaching them, how are we going to handle this relationship isn't working, let's move on, right? So take it as another learning opportunity, because they're going to have that conversation many times in their life. In jobs, this relationship is not working, I got to move on. Mm-hmm. Or in relationships, this relationship is not working, I need to move on, right? So teach them how to walk away from relationships that are toxic, that are no longer beneficial to them, but also teach them how to work through relationships that they think are not beneficial. It depends on what the roadblock is. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a very fine line, and I really don't know what that line is for me, because again, they're coming to me, asking me to be their mentor. Mm-hmm. So they know what they're going to get. And if they don't like it, they can walk away.
Got it. Yeah. I really like your take on even the termination of a mentorship relationship being treated as a learning opportunity. I think that that's very important. It puts a very positive spin on things. Mm-hmm. Adrienne, my take on this personally, mentoring, life coaching, and counseling, definitely agree with what Leoni said about counseling being more so something that should be left to professionals. I think that people often can approach their mentor and want counseling. Those are two very separate things. Counseling is more so kind of a working through trauma thing, working through mental roadblocks thing. From what I know about life coaches more so give you practical, like they tell you what you should do. Mm-hmm. And a life coach will tell you, oh, this is the dilemma you're in. Well, this is the course of action you should take. Whereas mm-hmm. a mentor often, correct me if I'm wrong, Leoni, but a mentor often will not tell you what you should do, but help you figure out what you think the best course of action is, and help you figure out what your personal best course of action is, and kind of revealing your options to you and allowing you to choose the correct.
Right. We're giving you some ideas. Mm-hmm. When I went through this is what I did.
Right.
Or, it's giving ideas. It's giving something to think about. It's just something to think about. Like, take it or leave it. It's kind of my attitude, right? Because at the end of the day, you are going to take it or leave it, and it's not going to be up to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you guys so very much for your questions. This stimulated definitely got me thinking. I hope those of you guys at home were exposed to new ideas and new concepts from just joining us today. Leoni, thank you so very much for your time. I can't tell you how beneficial this was, especially to me heading up this new mentoring program. There are lots of nuggets that I'm going to take from this. Those of you guys at home.
There's a lot of chats. Ooh.
Yes, a lot going on in the chat. Thank you guys so much for your interaction. That is so helpful. It's so great to have feedback in real time. But you can also give us your feedback through a survey that will be emailed to you if you are a participant today. Just, let us know how he did, because there will be 2 more Mentoring Matters sessions in the following months. So if you don't keep up with Youth Revive, I would recommend signing up for our newsletter and keeping up with when those are going to be for new opportunities there. But I want to thank everyone so much for giving us a little bit of your time today. Leoni, is there anything that you would like to, any well wishes for these people or last tidbits?
Well, I mean, I said it before, if you're considering this, if you are a mentor, good for you. You are paying it forward, but they have to have some ownership in the relationship. And so make sure that you give your mentees the driver's seat sometimes, because they have to have ownership or it won't work. If you're just driving the bus the whole time and dropping them off where they need to go and then picking them back up and then taking them to the next spot and dropping them off and picking them up, it doesn't always work that way. They need to get in the driver's seat and they need to ask you, which way do I go? And then, is this the right direction or should I go the other direction? I don't know. Here are your options. And then give them reasons why they go either way and let them choose, because they're going to make mistakes, but they need to know somebody's going to be there to catch them.
Mm-hmm.
People will be more risky. I think they'll be more daring if they knew somebody was going to catch them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for just expressing to us what it is that's on your heart. It's very clear how passionate you are about mentorship. We're going to close for the afternoon. Again, thank you for everyone who gave us a little bit of your time. And I would encourage you guys to keep an eye out for the next 2 Mentoring Matters sessions, because we're going to have a lot more evenings like this where we just bounce ideas back and forth off of each other. So I will say goodbye to you guys all now. Thank you so much, Leoni, and I hope to hear from you again soon. See you soon.
Great. Thank you.